Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I am joined by a special guest, Miss Lynne Strang. We met briefly through the world of Toastmasters, which I think is a great organization. And we're going to particularly talk about today, speaking with confidence. Obviously, I'm not a shy person. I'm pretty confident, but I joined Toastmasters for a different reason. The reason why I joined Toastmasters was to be more refined and be more more articulate with my public speaking. I wasn't scared about talking in front of crowds, but I wanted to be able to be more strategic and more careful with my words. But for others, some people join Toastmasters because they legit have a fear of speaking in public. And they use Toastmasters, which I think is a great opportunity to build up that confidence, to build up that self-esteem, and just really give them some tools to translate to any facet of their professional and personal lives of getting in front of a group of people. But we are joined by a distinguished Toastmaster. So she's been in the game, she's been speaking, public speaking for a while, and she leveled up in that regard. So I was like, let's get on the podcast and talk about that special niche of speaking with confidence. But before we get into our subject and our questions, I want to give her the opportunity to introduce herself to the listeners. So Lynn, can you just introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, hi Phil. Thanks for having me today. Just some quick background about me. I am a freelance writer based in Northern Virginia, and my writing activities really falls under two hats, as I'd like to describe them. One is that I provide marketing and communication support for small business owners and other organizations, everything from speech writing support to guest blog posts to anything that might support their communications and marketing activities. And the other thing that I do is I have a book and a blog about 40 and older entrepreneurs, people who start businesses after the age of 40 and what it takes to be successful in that field. And what got me on that journey, I would say, is two things. One is self-interest. I figured I would learn a lot that would help me personally, and also a desire to help others that might be in that situation. I had been in the public relations field for a long time, many years. The last real job, as I like to call it, was I was a vice president of communications for a financial services trade association. I really enjoyed my work and the things that I did, but I reached the point where I knew I was ready for a change. I was getting tired of the long commute. I worked in DC, and it was anybody that lives in this area knows that all it takes is a one delay on the metro road for a 45-minute commute to turn into a 2-hour commute.
Yes.
I was tired of that, and I just wanted more flexibility in my schedule, the ability to kind of structure my workday to make the most of my productivity. So I made the decision, I think it was 2010, to leave the world of formal structured jobs and go out on my own with a two-pronged approach. One was to write a book, and the other was to start a communications practice. But what I really discovered, what I enjoyed, was writing and speaking. So my journey has been refined a little bit to focus in on those two areas. And part of that journey led me to Toastmasters, as you mentioned. I have a sort of a disjointed Toastmasters history. I joined, then I left, and then I rejoined when I went out on my own after, actually, I guess it was about 5 years ago that I rejoined. And what inspired me to rejoin Toastmasters was a couple things. One, I knew that I would be able to do a better job of writing speeches for other people if I had experience on the other side of the lectern, knew what it was like to get up and stand up and give a speech. But also, I think Toastmasters is a great networking opportunity, especially for people that are just starting out in the professional work world, or maybe have been out of that world and want to re-enter it and looking to build contacts. That's kind of an aspect of Toastmasters that maybe doesn't get as much exposure as
Mhm.
other facets, but that I think is a great benefit. So that's a quick synopsis of
Yeah.
what
Well, that was a great overview. And so some of the things is uh, you were involved professionally in communication
correct.
for quite some time. Um, and maybe particularly to your journey, I think you said you used Toastmasters as a skill building tool when you were going into entrepreneurship. But
Yes,
were you confident in speaking in front of groups pre Toastmasters because of your career? Was this like similar to me when you went to your first meeting? You weren't nervous about talking in front of a crowd. You had a different. What I'm hearing is you may have had a different objective for what Toastmasters meant for you.
I did. And because of my professional background, I probably wasn't as nervous getting up in front of a group as people typically are. But one of the things that I have gained from being part of from Toastmasters and is an ability to speak without notes.
Mm,
That was something I was never able to do before. And one of the advantages you get from learning to speak without notes is that you can have greater eye contact with your audience.
mm,
That is so important when it comes to any type of presentation, public speaking. We've all sat through presentations where we've seen someone get up in front of the room and they sit there and they read
mhm,
their speech word for word. And it comes across as very stilted and
mhm.
unnatural. When you learn to speak without notes, you get that eye contact, you can connect with your audience, and it really brings your presentations up to a whole different level.
So basically, so even in your professional life, you were you were talking in front of meetings and speaking up, but it wasn't as refined or as not rehearsed, but as organized as Toastmasters. So you even learned a lot during that transitional period for yourself.
I did. And so when I got up in front of meetings and groups before, when I was in the more traditional work world, I typically would have some sort of notes up there
Mhm.
and up in front of me, or I might have a PowerPoint presentation. Still do that, but again, I now don't have to be reliant upon that. But I have to add that the only way that you can get to that level of being able to speak comfortably in front of a group without notes is rehearse, rehearse,
Yeah,
rehearse.
yeah.
There's really no way around it. And that really is a key part of preparation, is just taking the time not only to compile your thoughts and think about what is that you want to say, but to get up and give your talk, you know,
Mhm.
and just give it and give it until you really feel like that you at least have the framework in your mind of what it is that you want to say. And just to add on to that, giving up in front of a group and giving a talk without notes doesn't mean that you have to memorize your talk either.
Yes.
I think that's something that's like, oh my gosh, there's no way that I'm going to sit there and memorize word for word what your presentation is. And I don't think you want to go that. You just want to have, the
Mhm.
core ideas in your mind of what it is that you want to talk about. And if you give your talk, it's probably likelihood that if you give that same talk 2, 3, 4 times, it's not going to sound the same each time.
Mhm.
You might state things a little bit differently, but you have the core ideas and messages in your mind of what it is that you want to communicate with your audience.
Well, I heard that you spoke earlier, and just briefly, you said writing was one of your things. And can you speak upon the like the relationship between writing and speaking? So obviously, I think you said it is writing your first, like your primary love, and then speaking is secondary. And with that being said, did you believe that because you had the skill in writing, that when you came, it kind of gave you a little bit of a boost, like let me write out what I'm going to say a little bit, and that made you maybe a more prepared speaker?
Let me see if I can break that down. Let's see. Well, as far as like first love is like
Yeah,
writing versus speaking,
yeah.
that's a tough one because I've done both throughout my whole
Hmm.
career. I maybe would give a little bit of the edge to the writing, but
Hmm.
just a little bit. They
Hmm.
most definitely are intertwined. One of the things that becoming more skilled at public speaking does is it gives you skills that apply to all forms of communication. writing, speaking, listening, and reading. All those are those are the 4 core areas, I think, of communications, and they definitely spill over to one another. One of the primary things I think public speaking does in terms of how it helps other areas is it teaches you to organize your thoughts in a way that people can understand what the points are that you are trying to make. You learn to organize your core messages into a clearly defined structure that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that you organize the points you're trying to make in a way that it supports whatever the central message is of your talk. And that organizational ability definitely helps your writing, and vice versa. You know, writers, I think, when they come to public speaking, naturally know how to do that. I think where writers sometimes struggle with public speaking is we tend to be naturally introverted, and so it can be difficult if you're used to sitting in front of a communicator, in front of a computer, and expressing your thoughts that way. To then get up in front of an audience can be a challenge for some writers. But you do have that storytelling ability, the ability to organize your points, and to think through what your messages are, that definitely help you as a public speaker when you bring those skills over.
I love that because we're kind of flip-flop. I'm like extroverted to the extreme. And so through my journey, I had to go back. Like I had to write. Writing was my growth area where I write out things. And similar to your journal, I like to write now a little bit better, like write blog posts and articulate myself through words. But it was like, I could just freestyle. You told me to speak right now, I freestyle. But now I'm like, let me think about it the opposite way, like be more prepared and write and take notes. And so I do believe that they really work hand in hand. And then the listening part, just because of my counseling degree, I feel like that's good too. Like listening to it's like almost getting that engagement, listening to an audience or listening to, a person that's I'm working with to really understand how I convey a message. And so like, I never heard that those are the 4 prongs, and that's something I'm going to take with me. So you said earlier too, that you kind of started with Toastmasters, chilled for a little bit, and came back to it. Maybe can you speak upon why the second time was like, yo, this is something I'm going to stick with as opposed to the first time?
Well, the reason I took a break from it was I have 2 kids, and at the time they were really young, and it was just too much to expect to be able to participate regularly in any sort of extracurricular, Toastmaster or anything else, and take care of 2 little kids and work full time. It was just too much. So I decided I needed to take a break for a while. But then once my kids are grown, so I have more time to be able to invest in professional development and the things that I like to do. So that was why I took a few years off. In terms of how my second tour, so to speak, has differed from my first, I would say now I am focusing more on the finer points of public speaking and just really trying to master some of the things that will take you from a good speaker to a really good speaker. I think part of that is, and this again ties into the theme of how writing compares to public speaking. A big part of both, I think, is storytelling, effective storytelling, and using that to convey your points. If you read an article or if you sit and listen to somebody's speech and they have facts and figures and statistics, you may not remember those statistics after you've done reading the article or heard the speech, but you will remember them if that person is able to tie them into a story that makes it more memorable. Because a lot of what resonates with us is how things make us feel. So when you use you could use the same idea even if you are giving an accounting report to your office. In presenting numbers, if you are able to apply those numbers to some sort of story that demonstrates how that's making your company more successful or your enterprise closer to the goals it's trying to achieve, then it makes people feel more receptive to those numbers. It makes them feel your pride and feelings of success of where you, hopefully, you know, they're positive numbers. But point being that stories really do bring things to life and allow us to picture and envision what things mean. So storytelling really is an important component of both writing and public speaking. And that is something that I feel that another benefit being part of Toastmasters is helped me fine tune and master that skill.
Now, with the storytelling and us, I guess, intertwine it with confidence, right? Some of my things I realized with storytelling, the best storyteller's my mind, is their body language when they tell a story. You know, like if they get really into it, you buy into it too. I guess we're more animated, you know, if they're really animated with their stories, or you know, they're not mumbling, or they're very clear. Can you speak upon how confidence does play a part into being a good storyteller?
Well, one way it does, here's one of the beautiful things about storytelling is it doesn't require a lot of memorization, because these are your own stories, things that you know already. So you don't have to worry about whether you're getting all the facts right, or this, that, and the other, because they're part of you and they're things that you know. So that gives you more confidence, because you're not worrying about forgetting things like you might with other aspects of your speech. If you're able to just in your own mind know what stories it is that you want to intertwine in your presentation, I think that does give you more confidence, because you can always tell that story. You know, you know that story, and it's not something you have to remember, you know, exactly. You just get a feel for it, and that, I think, boosts the confidence of speakers when you're able to use them. You don't have to remember, and that takes the pressure off. And I think that's in part why people do get nervous with public speaking, because there's this pressure, like, oh, I got to remember all this stuff in my talk. And if a good portion of that stories is that it reduces that pressure that you put on yourself.
I like that. Just speaking into personal style, do you like to kick off whatever you're doing, a speech or even a professional presentation, with a story? You like to throw it in the middle, or you like to throw it in the end? You know, just personal preference, how you go, you know, how you like to throw it in, a story, a good story.
I like to start off with a story, but here's the key thing. You need to make sure that your story relates to your message. You can have a great story and it's funny and it's something you like, but if it has no relevance to what your key message is, you need to save that story for another time, for when you can tie it into whatever it is that you're communicating. Stories are great, and it may seem obvious, but it's worth a reminder that you want to pick and choose anecdotes that illustrate and support and strengthen whatever it is that your key message is that you're conveying to your audience.
So I didn't even ask you, what level Toastmaster are you? And when you started getting into the rolling, you know, did you notice, like, just organically, or, you know, in your journey of Toastmasters, did you just like start saying, wow, I'm getting better at this? Like outside perspective, or any feedback, people telling you you're getting better, or you just kind of like just stuck with it for a while and didn't realize before you know it, you're feeling way more confident? Like, it surprised you?
Well, yes and no. You know, not terribly. I'm a little bit of a different situation than a lot of people that come to public speaking, because many people join, well, or I shouldn't say, you know, some people join Toastmasters because they have no formal training in public speaking, and they have a boss or somebody in their office that says, hey, you need to get better at this if you want to promote to your next level. Join Toastmaster. So that sometimes is what brings people there. Others do have an interest in communication, public speaking, and they want to explore that interest, and that's what leads them to Toastmasters. You know, in my case, as I mentioned, I joined in part because I wanted to get experience on the other side of the lectern that I thought would make me a better speechwriter. And along the way, I have earned what's called a Distinguished Toastmasters designation, which is the highest level that you can achieve within Toastmasters educational program. to get there, I mean, that the requirements have changed so much.
Mm-hmm.
Toastmasters has recently switched over to a new educational program called Pathways.
Yeah, I'm in it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's when you get in that, you have a choice of, I think it's like 11 different paths that you can choose from that relate, and you can pick one, whatever relates most to your interests. If you're interested in becoming a coach, for example, like you want to do personal coaching or career coaching, they have a path dedicated coaching. If you want to learn how to use humor in your presentations, you can pick a path related to that. Or again, there's all kinds of them. I don't have them all.
Yeah.
We don't have time to go through them all, but you have a lot
Yeah.
to choose from, and you can pick something that relates closely to whatever your professional or personal interests are, and that really makes it relevant, I think.
So what is, let's, you're an expert, you're a distinguished Toastmaster. Let's say I'm Philip Wilkerson, I joined my club, I'm the shyest person you ever met. What are some things, when you pull that person aside just to help the new person, what are some things you kind of tell that person to help them get a little bit more confident, just to start a newbie? Let's talk about a newbie.
Well, number one would be jump in. As
Mm-hmm.
in, this Toastmasters offers a very supportive, encouraging environment. We are all there to help each other succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And that typically is what happens at the very first meeting that you attend. You're certainly not required to, but you are invited to get up and give a very short introduction of yourself. Something as simple as your name,
Mm-hmm.
where you live, and what brought you to the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And people are welcome to say as much or as little as they want to, but the purpose is just to get you to stand up and
Mm-hmm.
talk in front of a group of people. And you build from there. So every single time you get up and give a little talk, even if it's just a 1 or 2 sentence little introduction, you learn like, wow, that wasn't so bad
Mm-hmm.
after all. And
Yeah.
then you can build from there. So that would be my first tip or suggestion is jump in,
Mm-hmm.
get started, and every single time you speak, you'll be that much more confident, that much more comfortable, and you'll soon move on to the next level.
Mm-hmm. What about, okay, so I'm in there for a couple of weeks. I'm not the newbie no more. I already jumped in. What is level 2 ways of building confidence that you found? Whether it's coming more prepared before you speak now, writing notes. What are some, we're past the newbie person. We've been coming for about a month or two, but we still need to work on the confidence piece.
Well, once you've been involved, I guess the second part would be participate regularly. That's the
Mm-hmm.
other thing.
Yeah.
Is you need to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And what's that quote that Woody Allen or something had, 8% of life is showing up, and that's true about Toastmasters too. You need to actually attend the meetings so that you can get the benefit of the experience and knowledge and training that other people have. So A, stand up and start speaking.
Mm-hmm.
B, show up and participate. And just about every path you pick, whether it's the coaching or the humor or whatever, the very first project you'll be given is called an icebreaker speech.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a 4 to 6 minute talk in which you talk about yourself. Because again, as we were saying earlier, stories are what build confidence, and when you give stories,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to worry so much about memorization. Well, following along that theme, if you get up and give a talk about yourself, it's a topic that you know yourself, and you could pick any aspect. It could be your career, it could be your family, whatever. But again, it's just getting up there and talk. So after that, from that point on, what happens next depends upon what path you choose.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever project comes next in your chosen path. And the speeches that you give in that path are designed to teach you certain skills related to whatever avenue you decide to pursue. If you want to be a personal coach,
Mm-hmm.
then whatever comes next will be an assignment that is intended to teach you skills related to that area, and so on.
Now you said, you spoke upon it. It's like this is going to start bleeding over into either your other professional life and also your personal life. Can you, maybe just in general, you focusing on your communication skills. how has it bled over into one, your profession as an entrepreneur, and then two, maybe just as a family member, a friend, or whatever. So maybe that, how has this focus on this professional development realm, how has it influenced your professional entrepreneurship and your personal just relationships with others around you?
Well, on the professional side, as I mentioned earlier, I wrote a book
Hmm.
about entrepreneurship. And when the book came out, I, as part of my marketing efforts, did some public speaking related to that. I spoke
Hmm.
at various community groups. I did some webinars. I did, both virtual and in-person events where I was using my public speaking skills. So it certainly did carry
Hmm.
over there. As a writer, I am sometimes invited to speak at symposiums or workshops, et cetera, relate on topics related to writing. So certainly those public speaking skills come in handy there. On the personal side, there are some occasions there as well. Sadly, I had to give a eulogy for somebody about a year and a half ago for a dear friend that passed away. And certainly the skills that I learned in Toastmasters were very useful there. That's about the most emotional situation that
Hmm.
you can imagine, and having to give a speech. And just knowing certain fundamentals about speaking helped me to choose the right tone that I want to. That I wanted it to be more of a celebration
Hmm.
of my friend's life, and it was very helpful in terms of using storytelling again to
Hmm.
highlight things that I remembered about
Yeah.
my friend. So it was definitely helpful in that
Yeah,
scenario.
and I think, I'm not smiling because that's a happy thing, but in regards to, I've connected that too. Uh, I am the chaplain of my chapter, a fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, and I've had to speak on someone I didn't know, but I was able to use, gathering a story about them from secondhand, and how I convey that to a full church of people I didn't know. And I think the main thing was I had the notion in my mind that, how do I use my speaking skills to honor someone? And so I really kind of use that, and use storytelling, as you said, to be confident, speak clearly, and deliver a speech, which I felt was more important than some business meeting or something. It was like, this is about a person, So I do agree with you that that was probably a very powerful experience, and a very serious experience, um, where it's,
Yeah,
you
and because
translate those skills over, but you wanted to do it in a way that honored that person.
right, and because people there in that situation knew that individual. Most, well, maybe not all, but many
Mhm.
of them knew of that person. As they're listening to those stories, again, that there's that feeling about emotion and sentiment, and that they can kind of relive maybe they were actually there for some of those
Mhm.
scenarios that you were telling them about as you were recounting, maybe. And it just it makes it more powerful and meaningful, I think, for everyone when you're able to weave that in.
So I know a lot of people, they have, when they get into the zone, the flow state, you get more comfortable. You forget even what you said. When you get really confident, you're like, wow, you know, that speech was amazing. Like, what? I was just talking. I didn't realize it was. Have you ever gotten to that? Have you ever felt that sense, like on a stage or something, that you just felt like you're looking in the audience and everyone's shaking their heads and everyone's nodding or smiling, and you're like, yo, I'm nailing it. Like, in regards to, like, I'm hitting on all cylinders, and I'm really, the way I'm speaking is really connecting with people. Have you ever felt that before?
Well, I'm certainly attuned to how the audience is reacting to
Hmm.
my presentation. And I think that's an important thing to remember too when you're giving presentation, is you do want to know your audience, and you do want to be paying attention and observing how they are reacting to what you're saying. And depending upon what those reactions are, you might want to speed up through certain
Hmm.
sections, or alter the pace of your talk a little bit more based upon what you're observing with how your audience reacts. But when you see presenters get up and seem to be up there effortlessly connecting with the audience, I can assure you that they put in hours and hours and hours of practice in order to get to that level. It looks so easy, like, wow, that person has a natural gift to get up there and talk, but it's always because that person devoted many, many, many hours of rehearsal, fine tuning, adjusting this or adjusting that so that they can connect and create that seemingly smooth, effortless talk that you're observing up there. I had opportunity this spring to compete in a contest that was Toastmasters contest that was offered here. It's a tall tales contest, and it was the first time we are in the way, just not to get too complicated. Toastmasters is organized into districts, and district here where we are for the first time ever had a tall tales contest. And I had never given a tall tale before, which for those that may not be familiar with what it is, think Paul Bunyan, it's like exaggeration and involves humor and all that. But because of COVID, all the contests were held online. We were not able to do them in person. And because they were held online, I was not able to see my audience. So, talking about earlier about how you adjust your talk based upon the nonverbal cues and things that your audience gives you, we had none of that because we couldn't see our audience. And it was a very strange scenario, but as a speaker, you have to be able to adjust at whatever gets thrown at you. But I mean, that was sort of a reinforcement for me how what a big difference it is when you're actually being talked.
Or there's nothing like, I know we're in this world of technology, but there's really, and we're talking on Zoom and we're seeing each other, but I will tell you, it's a different vibe. There's something about energy where you're physically in the same presence.
Yeah.
And I feed off of that. I don't know, like, I feel it. I feel the difference, and I get different butterflies in my stomach. I get a different sensation. I don't think that nothing can really replicate that. I mean, obviously technology has brought us a long way, but there's nothing like, I don't know, there's nothing about spatial awareness and just being in the same presence of other people. And also particularly on the flip side in the audience, when you're watching someone speak and you're in that same room with them. I can remember certain times where I've listened to someone, they gave me chills, like legit chills, because I just felt it. I don't know. So I love that part about speaking.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. And I think that's something that is many people are struggling with that right now because we are communicating by Zoom or by, I should say, video conferencing, Skype, Zoom, and all the other platforms that are out there. It's just required learning a whole new way to communicate, and it's definitely a journey, but I think it's something that's probably going to stick around even when we are able to meet in person to some degree again.
Well, I'm going to throw you off. This is a surprise. I always want to surprise my guests. I call it shot for shot. Now, this is an opportunity. You get to ask me any random question that you want. I get to ask you any random question, kind of like shot for shot. Shout out to my man Marty for telling me this. We did this a while ago, a couple years ago, and I just thought it was a great idea. You want to go first, or I go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
What's the most challenging speech you've ever had to give?
To give? Challenging? I would say challenging, but like in regards to this new like passion of mine to try to be a public speaker, was one that was outside the club, but I felt like it was me trying to, get like a contest. And it was a TEDx recently, similar to what I was trying to do a TEDx pitch for Acrona Bay in Alexandria, Virginia, which I did the pitch previously before. It was like you had to pitch your idea in 3 minutes. And if they approve it, then you get the full, like they'll try to, it was like a contest, And so I did it physically in person last year. And then this year I had to do the same thing, similar to you, via the virtual realm. And it was just challenging, similar to everything that you said. Like, I had my family and friends the first time in person to look at them and look at my wife. And I was like, wow, I can, if anything else, I can look at my wife and she'll nod and smile at me. I can bomb this, I can go up there and bomb it. And at least I know I got my wife showing me love and looking at her face. She's like my anchor. I always encourage people to have someone that's like your public speaking anchor. You look at them and you're like, wow, that person's gonna ground me, keep me grounded. There's two ways I think of anchor, like actual anchor my feet and feel stand up tall, my chest up, but also physically look at someone and be like, yo, that's my anchor. That's my physical anchor. But we had to do it on Zoom, similar to what you said. And it had all these kinks and my sound would cut in and cut out. My Wi-Fi, I mean, it was so many people in the room that I don't know if my vent, like sometimes I would freeze even when I was talking. And I was like, man, like, if I could get a chance to do this in person, I would nail it. And so that was very challenging. But again, I want to keep on doing it. Like I'm going to keep on entering these contests. I'm going to keep on throwing myself out there and opportunities to speak, to test myself, to just give me that butterfly feeling in my stomach and feel excited. But that was really challenging because I like I said earlier, I really like to look at people in the face and really connect with real people and connect face to face. So that was recent. It was during this COVID time. And so that was a very challenging speech. So.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning to point out that some nervousness is good,
Mm-hmm.
because nervousness, or you could categorize as excitement or whatever, but it shows that you care, that you want to do a good job. And we have this saying in Toastmasters: you want your butterflies to fly in formation.
I didn't know that. That's good.
Which basically means it's good to be to be energized and to want to do a good job. The key is just to maintain some control so that you deliver the message in a way that it resonates with people and comes across clearly, and people leave with you leave with having fulfilled whatever objective you had for that presentation.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I played sports, so I was always like, when you get hyped, that was energy and fuel, adrenaline, that adrenaline feeling. Like when I ran track or played football, it's performance, and I think I definitely like what you said about that iceberg. Like you see the people at the top, but any sport, especially track, like you practice and run 400s after 400 for a race that's done in a minute. But no one sees that below the iceberg. They just see that time where it's game time. And so I will always think it's like a thrill seeking thing. Like I get excited, I get hyped for that. Like practicing with note cards and practicing my 3-minute pitch. I was doing it over and over again and mumbling it outside to myself just for that moment. It was more exciting in person. It was kind of, I ain't gonna lie, it was kind of trash virtually. Yeah. I was so excited to do it in person. So, but I'm gonna keep plugging away.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's happens a lot. You're terrified, and then when you get through, it's like, wow, that was great. Yeah. I get to go again. So.
Yes, based like a roller coaster. So here's my random question. The great speakers, the great orators. Sometimes. Who do you like to look at their old YouTube videos or listen to their speeches just to get motivated, get hyped? I look at old speeches by Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, or just how he conducted interviews on YouTube. I was like, wow, these guys their vocabulary. I like to, or Les Brown. I like to look at Les Brown speeches just because I just like how he moves the crowd. So who are some people that as speakers you look at and like to, not to say necessarily model yourself after, but like you like to watch how they talk?
Well, it depends upon the speaking engagement that I'm going to give, or what type of speech I'm going to give. If it's going to be a business professional speech or a fun tall tale speech or what have you, that will determine who I like to watch and observe. But generally speaking, one of my favorite speakers or speeches that I go back and watch this speech repeatedly. It was the winner of the Toastmasters international competition in, I think it was 2015. And the title of the speech was, I See Something. And the gentleman that gave the speech, he has a name that has a lot of syllables in it.
So I'll find it. Well, I'll put that in the show notes. So you don't have to worry. Yeah, I'll Google it and put that in the show notes for people to follow up. What was so good about that one?
Well, it was a very simple message that is relatable to everybody. And then in his talk, this guy talks about how he has, like many of us, has struggled all his life, and he had the good fortune of going to he joined Toastmasters, he found a job, and along the career of his path, he found people that saw something in him that he couldn't see in himself. And so that is sort of the theme throughout. He talks about, this person would say to me, I see something, but I don't know what it is. And the next person would say, I see something, but I don't know what it is. And eventually the ending message is, that each of us has something within ourselves, a special skill, a special talent. And sometimes it takes a third party, whether it's a member of your family or somebody that you work with or somebody in an organization that you belong to spot that special talent in you. And just the way that he crafted the speech, used storytelling, used anecdotes from his own life to illustrate this point. Also, his use of props is great in the beginning. Again, I don't want to give too much away if people are going to go watch the speech.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it. Yeah.
He takes at the beginning a flower at the beginning, that how, and then it appears again in another key point of the speech.
Wow. Okay.
So that's one of my favorite speeches of all time, that particular one. And then when I was competing this spring for the Tall Tales contest, since I knew nothing really about what a Tall Tales was, I went on to YouTube and I found the speaker who I think is a fantastic tall speaker. Her name is Jeannie Robertson. And this would be more of a speaker to watch for somebody that wants to learn yet the art of storytelling and use of humor. She's a great humorous speaker. So that is one of my favorite speakers as far as use of humor.
Oh, I love it. I'm gonna have to check them out. Now I'm gonna put those in the show notes, particularly for other people to follow up. Those sound really awesome. So this is a great episode. I thank you so much for reaching out and sharing your journey with us, and also just giving us some tips. I took some notes myself. It's like, I love it. Like, for instance, this podcast for me is not only for people to share their skills and their life with other people. I learned just as much from conducting these little interviews for Positive Philter. So it's been great. So now the stage is set. I'll be uninterrupted. Shout outs and plugs. So show some love, shout out whoever you want to shout out, family, anyone, friends, supports, and then plugs. Plugs are anything that you're working on, any ventures that you're working on, and also where the listeners can follow up with you so that they can stay connected, which I will also put in the show notes. So stage is set. It's all yours. Shout outs and plugs.
All right. Well, I have to give a shout out to my spouse, Jim, who is one of the most successful entrepreneurs that I know, and certainly has been a big influence and supporter in my own entrepreneurial journey. He is one of those lucky people that has converted his passion into a business. He has several bike stores here in the Northern Virginia area. So, he's a cyclist and he has bike stores, and it's been really a joy and wonderful thing to watch him run a successful business and be able to enjoy his passion in life. So I guess that's my shout out for him. And plug would be, we've been talking about Toastmasters throughout this whole conversation, but I guess I would just give Toastmasters another plug again. I think if I were to summarize what I would suggest for people listening to this conversation about what you can do to improve your public speaking, number one would be to speak wherever you can, because the more you speak, the better you get. And the better you get, the more confident you become. That's really it in a nutshell. And if you feel like you need help, go get help, because it's there. Toastmasters is a worldwide organization. If you go to the website, Toastmasters International, and there's a place where you can enter in your zip code. It'll tell you a listing of clubs. If you're looking for a club near your work or your home or whatever, you can find one. You can find one that works within your schedule. So there is something for everybody that supports whatever your time availability is. So I would encourage people, speak whenever you can, get help. The support is there. And if you do take those steps, I think the value and knowledge that you obtain in that form of communication will carry over to other forms of communication, that listening, speaking, writing, and all those things that we need to be successful as professionals, or whatever other endeavor we might want to pursue.
What about your book and your website where they can follow up with you directly?
My book is called Late Blooming Entrepreneurs, 8 Principles for Starting a Business After Age 40. It is available on all the usual places. Amazon is probably the easiest way to get it, Barnes & Noble and a few other places. And the blog is also called Late Blooming Entrepreneurs, where I profile people who started successful businesses and what enabled them to make successful, because really the goal there is to extract out lessons learned that can help others that might be interested in starting a business, have thought about it, but just is looking for, again, that little inspiration or can do, that it is possible, and learn from what others have experienced as they have undertaken that journey. In terms of where people can find me, I am on LinkedIn. I have a Facebook page under my author name, Lynn Beverly Strang. I'm on there. And I have a website, lynnbeverlystrang.com. So any combination of those places will lead you to me.
Excellent. And, definitely I learned some things, and I think that is great. I'm a sub 40 entrepreneur, but I'm pretty sure I can learn about some entrepreneur tips from your book. Even for the 40 plus crowd, it still could be applicable to me in my mid 30s. But thank you so much. I really appreciate you reaching out. I'm just so happy that we got to connect and you got to share your journey, and especially some of those resources with the listeners. And so I encourage anyone that's listening to this show, please follow up and connect, get some advice, join Toastmasters. But also, if you're looking for your own journey in entrepreneurship, please purchase the book and check it out and read and use this as a resource. Thank you so much for being on the show. And listeners, if you like this show or this episode, please share it with your family and friends. If you want to drop a message for the hotline, it's 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. Sharing positivity and helping each other is what it's all about. And please, please, please continue to be safe during this time of this unprecedented time, what's going on. So please continue to be positive, show some love, share kindness, and all those things. And please follow up with Miss Strange in regards to her things and what she's working on, because she definitely has some help and some resources that she can give. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being with you.
All right. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.